speak now. The point of it is here. The terminology, the words used, you must be careful with if you begin to understand this and accept it. I can only invite. A lot of people today don't understand what a friend of mine said some years ago before he passed. We used to talk about it. And he said it best. He said this. A lot of the people that time, late 60s, early 70s, they're talking about revolution. Him and I agreed, and others. We cannot get involved with a revolution that we're going to lose. Everybody was, look at their walls. Che Guevara. All these so-called revolutionaries. Not putting them down, that's all they had. They did not have the spiritual power that we were given, which we could take back at any time. We could earn it. Having said that, so what he said was this. I agree 100%. Revolutions are caused because of hatred for an oppressor. Liberation is done for the love of the people. That's the difference. So liberation, freedom, first of all, from the oppressive system that's forced upon all Indian people. Now, what is an Indian? Going back to that, Los Indios means without God. It went through, as Byron mentioned earlier, it went through different phases in time. First of all, when the Vatican, which used to belong to the tribes of the world, including the tribes here, it was usurped by the Romans. In other words, they took it over to make it a religious center for control. That's where it is today. It used to belong to us. That's where we settled our differences. I'm taking you back long before the 1800s when all this trouble started to happen. When the white man came here. I'll mention now a mixed blood, but I know inside of me who I am. I'm Indian. I'm not one of these Métis fiddling dance. Not putting people down. That's what it's become today. Even those mixed bloods had their struggle, hard times. But they decided there's something else. A lot of them, I'm trying to explain to them, what are we called? What was said about the mixed blood people? We were called Abdaugussan, Abdaugussan. It means half a son, but still a son. Most of it go to the woman's side, which is the old law. No Hopan, our late grandmother, will go to her side of the family, meaning her clan. Mascahito, their clan, that's what she was. She was a descendant of those who never took a treaty. That's the descendant of one they call the Almas, Big Bear. He fought them like hell. He would not take a treaty. They chased him all over the country, him and his people. Finally, they chased him so much they had no time to stop hunt. They had to keep moving. Now, when they finally get him, his son and his daughter signed a treaty. Because they were going hungry. They thought that's the only way to survive. He would not. They put him in prison. He passed away not long after. But my late grandmother's descended from his people that left, the ones who signed that treaty, they left him. They wouldn't take that treaty. They went by the wishes of the old man. Big Bear. My grandfather, he's a mixed blood. Hardly could speak English. He was not a Métis. He was an Indian. That's the difference. Now, having said that, so Indian is the proper term used. Again, it was touched on by Byron briefly. Now, if you look at any of these treaties, I looked at them for years off and on, even though descended of non-treaty people. A lot of my relatives are on the reserve, Hushmaches, another one they call Enoch, got relatives everywhere. And a lot of them, when we were younger, I used to think about what they're talking about, treaty. One of my old uncles, Douglas Buffalo, he used to talk about it. He used to say it this way. He used to speak the language. He said, we used to be up here. RCMP Indian Affairs was down here. Now it's like this. We're down here, they're up here. He said then, I didn't understand it at the time completely, but here's what he said. The Indian is the peacekeeper on this part of the world. Not the RCMP, not a foreign government. So, the Byron introduced the treaty. What did he say? It can only be based upon peace. Not the surrender of land, the imprisonment of the people, placed on Indian reservations. Only peace. That's international law. I study the international law, the things that they hide you. They hide from Indian people. Meredith Quinn did 45 years of research of his life. Passed it to me to carry on after he passed away. I do the best I can. But it's all for you. Meetings like this are powerful. Why? Because this brother here, what did he do? He called us here to try and understand what it is we're up against and how to resolve it. Apparently, we're having all kinds of, all of a sudden these meetings start happening. Going to have this movie for the kids, they're going to have this bone game, hand game, some call it. Going to have all these things to distract you, take you away. Well, that's good. That's good. Those who really want to know the resolve of our problems, they would be here. I'm not condemning anybody, we can only invite. I talk loud because I'm half deaf. So, I'm also a grouch, but a good one. I know how to do it good. So now, I started out with this. In all international law, there's 6 aboriginal treaties that are the foundation of all international law. 3 of them are Indian. South, the East. Peace by treaties, that's us. Kingdom authority. West Coast. Those 3 cover this part of the world, the Western Hemisphere. Some say Turtle Island, but I do name. No, Tikawi, no, escape. Earth Mother, Tikawi. Never mind changing it to Turtle Island. There's another term I heard, some things I'm going to correct. One of the terms I heard was First Nation. You know where that came from? Saul Sanderson, former head chief of the, what do they call them now? Saskatchewan, the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations is what it's called. First of all, it's a surrender right there. Got the language? Federation of Saskatchewan? Federation of Saskatchewan? Under the province? Cut to the chase on law. If you organize yourself under the common law of the white man, you're no longer Indian legally. You're not. Sad to say. Mind you, there's a lot of good people in these Indian organizations, but you know how they can be stopped? Cut off the funding. A lot of them were successful in the back days. I used to have a lot of friends that run good organizations that really did help the people. They were cut off. The funding was cut off. So other people still carried on and helped the people as best they could without funding, which I do. A lot of times I accepted a veg and a bowl of soup because people were so poor that they wanted to know how to get free of the white man's law and lie. So that's how I do it. Now, let's go back to these treaties. This is what covers it. Okay. From these 6 treaties, the other ones, I'll just finish quickly. The seal of Solomon. Coachella only went to grade 8. We have spelled. Okay, and the last one. Okay, so these 3 cover us, this part of the world. This one here, Canes of Authority. West Coast, Peace Pipes, us, Wampum Belts East. Seal of Solomon, it covers all blacks, Arabs, and Israelites. They used to be tribal people, just like us. Betregayas, ancient times, still law today. Okay, Palladium of Troy, that covers all Asia and Minor Asia. Okay. So today they say Chinese, Japanese, Cantonese, Canadian geese, whatever. They changed it. Now this one, so that covers them. Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark is a treaty, not a boat per se. They always dwell on the boat, Noah. You know who Noah was? Research, Meredith Quinn. Noah and his sons and all his followers. Remember now, this is a patriarch. A man who used to attack tribal women because tribal women were the law of a territory. They owned everything. The men were appointed by the women to run the territory. The men used to do it because that's too low for a woman to do. They gave it to the men to run the territory, take care of business. He chose them for life, not for an election, not for money. It's still the same today. Now, so every one of them were ruled by the women. When these were in place, I could give you the years, there was 700 years of peace on this earth when the woman ruled. Now, having said that, now go back to Noah. They got in the white man's Bible, he's way up there. He was a rapist. He raped tribal women. His sons did the same, and all the male followers. Why? Because they owned everything. They went by what they instituted, a man-made law called the law of the sword, where after they impregnated those tribal women, they killed the women and they killed the children. That was their law. Okay? So, Noah. Everybody that goes to church says Noah's really something. He was a rapist. Just like that orange man down south. Everybody wants to join. Well, pack up, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Go down south. Go join that Donald Trump. Go get trumped. Now, having said that, so you have 6 treaties. That's the foundation of all international law, which every country today must abide by. They're not held to it because no tribal people making them do it. Well, I did, not as alone. I was appointed to do it by the women. appointed to address the Crown of England, and I commanded her. And she responded. We didn't wait for a response. We moved into the mountains, out of the village, out of the towns, and we started building our own cabins, our own houses. They tried to remove it. The commander already went to the Queen. She responded to the Governor General LeBlanc, an old Frenchman, white-haired Frenchman way back. And even one honorable guy was among them, Ralph Blaine. He sent his man right away. It was Cardinal, an Indian. It was a minister of environment, because we moved into a national park. That don't mean nothing to us, it's our territory. Now I'm going to go a little further, so you can ask questions later on. Now remember this always. Always. You, when you identify as an Indian, that's your proper identity. I know who I am, I know my people, Nihiyag. You explain who his people are, all of you who are Blackfoot. Now, moving on to this term Indian. Okay, he started to explain to you. It means those without God. All right. Through time, it became indigena, became Indio. All right, they're altering. Why? Because when the Vatican sanctioned the Columbus Commission, what wasn't his name? It was a commission sent over here. They knew about this territory. Why? Because we have treaties with the white tribes of Europe. We have treaties with the white tribes of Europe long before 1492. Now, so what happened at that time? So Christopher was sent over here, and a lot of people say, oh, he was Spanish, he was this. He was a Jew, born at the gates of Lisbon, Portugal, of the Jewry. By his own handwriting, got a copy of it. He was a Jew. So Queen Isabella financed him. The Vatican sanctioned his journey. Okay? So the law of the sword was sanctioned by the Vatican. And it said you could go and kill Los Indios, those who do not believe in our God. You could kill them. And that's what they did. Now, so when I talk about these things that you've talked about, it all comes down to crimes they committed. And nobody's held them responsible for those crimes. Well, I have. I commanded to the Queen. I pointed out she's not even English or British. She's a descendant of Romecos, which were at one time the royalty of Greece. I know her attraction. Meredith gave me pretty well the clue. Mountain. She goes back to Greek royalty. I sent her the documents separate from the command. She realized this little hillbilly Indian knows what the hell he's talking about. I mean it. I don't say that conceitedly. It had to be done. I was told to do it, so I had to learn how to do it. So what has transpired because of using these? When I got back, I've been away, traveling, learning all over Indian country, both in the south, everywhere. Now, when I got back, I started to have children, which one of the women from the mountains. So I had to feed them. So I went hunting. They were living in what they call a co-op. Not a reserve, not a Métis colony, co-op, a cooperative. 2 miles by 2 miles. 15 families living in 2 miles by 2 miles. 5 different co-ops. Every strata, every level of Indian blood, from full-blood Indian all the way down to quarter blood in these colonies, or I'm sorry, co-ops. So when I got there, there's moose, elk, deer, running all over, jumping all over you. They wouldn't shoot. They do it, they go to jail. They were allowed to take one animal a year. They get one permit. They have to go uptown to the government and get it issued. They issued them when the moose were lousy, like in the springtime. If you were on welfare, you didn't get a permit. These are the people that really need it. So obviously, the suppression was so blatant up there, I couldn't handle it. And the people that had been victimized, some say Christianized, they've been victimized. So when I got there, I went hunting several times. Now, they charged me. I went to court. I spoke up in the court and told them when I leave this court, I'm going hunting because I have to feed my children. That's it. So eventually, I got tired of it. They come in twice. I wouldn't stop for them. Chased me right down to the village in my truck. I jumped out. They surrounded me. They tackled me. They put a summons in my pocket because I wouldn't take it. That's what they did. Now, so that was going on. And some of the people were pointing in. Oh, I saw what's his name. He was shooting he's got an animal. They get paid for turning in their own people for hunting. So a lot of them were scared to do it. I decided no. Because I learned this when I was young. Fear is a lie. Creator Great Spirit didn't put us on this earth to be afraid of anything. So, now going back to it, I had to do something to stop the madness. So, I got hold of a man, he worked at CBC, the Indian sector of CBC, Dock City. He's from the East. He's from the people who used the wampum. So he told me about an old man that I should meet. So what happened in the meantime, a court case came up. Two brothers, you could look up the case, was the Poitras brothers, Regina versus Poitras, the case. Two brothers selling tobacco on the Pecos Indian Reserve, Saskatchewan. Jim and George, late George. So they went to a ceremony, Musquatches. I didn't know who they were. I was back home. And a phone call came in. I had to go down to, there's some rich white woman used to support us once in a while. A call came in there because I left her number. I didn't have a phone. Didn't need it in the bush. So I went and answered. Here it was, these two brothers. They said, we understand that you know something about law and treaty. I said, what's your problem? So they told me. They were $120,000 worth of tobacco and cigarettes. Came from Mohawks in New York. By the way, I taught them in New York. They're doing all right. But anyway, so they get it up here, and they thought it's their right, so they're selling to everybody. Well, come along, you're selling. Well, I agree, it was their right, but there's something that stopped them. I knew what it was, I had to explain it to you. These guys talked about it earlier, what it was. Now, so they were told in the sermon, there's a guy in the mountains. He could help you. So they found me. I asked him, I said, look, the only way I can help you is this way. If you didn't enter a plea, and if you have a lawyer, you have to get rid of him. Otherwise, I can't help you. Okay? Now, what's the allegiance of a lawyer? Where does he give his allegiance? In order to get that piece of paper that says you can practice law, you have to swear your allegiance to uphold the law of the crown. Got it? So a lot of people that say, well, my son's an Indian lawyer. There's no such thing as an Indian and a lawyer. Once you become a lawyer, you're no longer an Indian legally. So, I'm not putting anybody down. Our people have been suppressed for so long, they're looking for answers within the box, in the white man's system, in other words. So they become lawyers, doctors, whatever. That's their business, their choice. I don't condone. I know what they've been through. I'm 81 years old today, so I've been through a bit myself. So anyway, going back to these two. So it's that time Queen's Bench, not King's Bench. Queen's Bench, Melfort, Saskatchewan. So I told him, all right, you didn't enter a plea, you got rid of your lawyer, I got to travel, I'm not asking for anything else, you'll have to do some fundraising. I'll see if I can get some help. Well, I got a few $100 from Annie, a rich woman, to start out. And then the head of the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations at that time was Roland Crow. And I knew Roland from Pride Park Reserve, Pride Park, Saskatchewan. I was adopted in by the late Muslim Mangle. So he gets hold of me. He says, Lester, I hear you understand something about the law of treaty. I said, yeah. He said, can you help those poetry brothers? Yes, I will. He said, what's your fee? I told him, you know better, Roland. Tobacco, print, whatever else you give. He said, well, how much 10,000 sound? I was hello. I said, yeah. 10,000 kept 5 of us families all winter in the bush. Didn't need a lot of money. Use it properly. So away we went. Me, my partner, the kids, had 2 big tents, old style. Put stoves in there to be warm. So I went over there for that case to begin with. So here's how it went. Judge Barkley, somewhat of an intellectual type guy. So we come into the court, it's Queen's Bench. So I come in, I brought in, have a small one, put it there. And prosecutor, a young man, McCullough, French or Scottish, he objected. The judge says, I see you don't wear the hauteur, which is a prerequisite in Queen's Bench court, sir. He said, what gives you the right to come into the court and represent these people? I said, because I'm an Indian. Got it? I knew then what language to speak. I said, an Indian. All right, into my chamber. Go into his chamber. He said, tell me against you what qualifies you. I said, my study of international law points out clearly that you, sir, are assuming jurisdiction. You don't have it. He says, and why not? He said, because of a treaty. He said, well, treaties could be misconstrued. I said, yes, they have been, and a crime has been committed because of that. You're qualified, sir. So, back into the court. Cut to the chase. Prosecutor objected to everything. He said, I want this man, meaning me, I want him to read out Treaty 4. I said, I cannot and I will not. Judge says, why not? Because I'm not a member of Treaty 4, nor am I a treaty Indian. So I kind of stunned him. So the prosecutor, he said, I can't see continuing this matter. My objection is that this man is not qualified. The judge said, I beg to differ, sir. Young prosecutor, he lost his job, by the way, after that. It's too bad. But the Indian organization hired him. Anyway, so what happened is this. Cut to the chase. I said, I'm here to present a rule of law to show that this court does not have jurisdiction in this matter. He tried to do, he put it off. Finally, he said, what's your rule of law, sir? I told him. This treaty belongs at the international level. What did Byron say earlier? I used to pass this out, quite a few of us used to pass this document out back in the late 60s, 68, 69, right into the early 70s. J.J. Curran, 1897. What does he say? This is the Solicitor General for Canada. What does he say? We contend that these treaties are governed by international rather than municipal law, right from their own Governor General. So the judge looks at it. I make a copy. No. So there's where it's at. It's stuck. So the judge says, well, I'm going to take a month to see if I have jurisdiction in this matter. So I went back to the mountains. I get a call from Jim and George. I already presented the rule of law, so I don't need to be there. So you guys just go and stick to what has been presented, don't say nothing more, and listen to what he says. So here's what he says. He said to them, I look at the past and all the convictions of Indian people, and in this matter, I find you guilty. And I'm going to impose a fine at possible time, so that will be determined. He said, wow, he said, the amount of the fine is $50,000. Now here's his final words. But, remember what but means? What means you just wiped up everything you said before. He says, but it's not enforceable. He could not enforce a sentence. This is a Queen Bench judge, federal judge, could not enforce a sentence. Stop the quote. Why? Because I researched, because I studied, I began to understand the crimes they're committing. So I go to the court to redress their crime. Because the first thing they ask, 16 different cases, what's your argument, sir? I'm not here to argue. I'm here to present a rule of law that either you honor, sir, or you're the criminal and you should be arrested. Right in their face, right in their eyes. Well, look at that. Take your time. The final words of that judge was, after this sentence was not enforceable, he said, and I'm not going to make this court into a collection agency. He's lying again. They collect fines every day, don't they? So I had him. See, the purpose of it is present the proper rule of law, and they can't touch you. But your identity is all wrong. First Nations are a corporate charter belonging to Canada via Indian Affairs. Wired down here. We touched on it. 1982, the Queen sanctions a constitution for Canada, the corporation. So they bring that back. Okay? That's only for white people. It's not for Indians. You have a treaty that says you're of your own nation. You're of your own people. You know that you can't, as an Indian, you can never be a citizen of a white civilized nation. They can only assume jurisdiction like they're doing right today over Indians. The assumption is a crime. I addressed that in court. To continue assuming jurisdiction constitutes a crime of treason against an Indian individual or an Indian tribe. Very simple. So the words you use either set you free or convicts you under their law. Now, so in that case, a friend of mine, he's still there, he's the guy that's been in APTN since it started. He's a good friend. He does clipping. All these newspaper things he finds, he clips it. I don't do that stuff. He sent it to me. I couldn't believe it. Here in Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatchewan, they have, I call it a redneck talk show. It's for all Indian haters, anti-Indians people. So the phone was ringing off its hook. One guy said, people wanted answers. Why did this judge allow those Indians to go scot-free? Why can't we do that? Because you're not Indian. Pretty simple. Now, the other part. It hits the Saskatchewan legislature. The opposition justice critic, he stands up and he says to the Minister of Justice at that time, what are you going to do about this matter? So he said, well, you should understand, I, as a justice minister for a province, I can't override a federal judge's decision. No, even I do that. So that put him in his place. So in all this, he says, are you going to consult with Minister Rock? Alan Rock was the federal Minister of Justice at that time. He said, apparently this matter is in review and it may be appealed. The appeal was denied. They tried to appeal this case, it was denied. They don't want to open that can of worms any further. Because I sure as hell will help them open it up. So that was the end of that case, collapsing case on their part. Okay? So not long after that, I thought about it. Jurisdiction's got to be taken back in totality. So I got back home and I told him about this guy who used to work in Edmonton, he's a Mohawk. He said, hey, the guys down east, all these warriors, whatever, tobacco hustlers, they want help. They're having trouble with the courts. Get convicted left and right. Don't know who they are. Who said, they want you out there. I said, well, I got a travel. Said, no. Said, they'll send you money. I said, well, tell them to send it to you. Because I didn't really have an address. They're living in the bush. I didn't have a box number. So he got it. He said, we're going to go back home. I got a good van. I said, well, let's go. So we went with him. Now, so we get to a meeting. There was late Chief Richard Miracle. He was a real chief, not elected, not for money. He was appointed by the women of his clan. He was a longhouse chief. And he invited me to the longhouse to see how it's run. Of course, I sit with the bears. He's on bear clan. Then he invited me over to where he is. So I looked at that longhouse and I see a white guy sitting up there. I think it was Turtle Clan there sitting with him. So I whispered to him, I said, Chief Richard, what's that white man doing here? He said, that's what I'm talking in the language. Why did they bring him in here? They brought him in because this guy He's a hustler. Now, the chiefs of the Longhouse who accepted it, they're being paid by the government. He got a payment. So why do they honor this guy? Let him come into the Longhouse. So it was Chief Richard had objected. Finally they got rid of him. He wasn't allowed in. But see how you've got to be careful with people you invite, all of them. I'm not talking about hatred, none of the words like racism. There's no such thing as racism. You either hate somebody or you don't. And Indians are hated by certain people. So that's hatred of Indians. Cover word racism, just like genocide. Let's have a look at that word. Don't ever misuse it. Genocide. Here's what it is. The first part comes from ancient Greek, Genos. It means tribes. The second part comes from medieval Latin, Cide, Cide. So, Cide means killing. Genocide. Today it's called genocide. It's still the same thing. You can pretty it up, make it a legal term in international law, call it genocide. It's still tribal killing, murder of tribal people. That's what it is. Genocide, genocide. So when you study these words and you take it back to its origin and you know how to use them, you carry power. English is a cursed language, so that's why they use terms like that derive from medieval Latin, ancient Greek. They're trying to do cover words, pretty it up. If you look at the terms and you use them properly, you can stop them. Because they're subject to their own law as well. Now, there's many other cases, but I won't get into that. There's 16 cases where the judges all back down. They use cover words to make it look like they still have jurisdiction, but they don't. And all the Indians that I spoke of back, they walked free out of that courtroom. And that's why I do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. And I'd simply ask the people, study this. I can only invite you to come on board as a signatory tribal Indian. If they decide not to, well, till next time, get a lawyer. Now, let's get on with this. These today, this is still law today. It's still law. These trees, because here's the law. How were these trees made? Noah, when he opened his ark, he signed the treaty. I got the year he signed it. Surrendered. Why? Because they sent a flood. Because of what he was doing, him and his sons and all the followers, the male. They were raping tribal women. So there was one who was sent out. If you look at West Coast, some of the artists that know creation stories way back. One of my chums, Brother Harry, we knew each other many years. We're still like brothers to this day. He did carving on a bracelet, and it showed a bird with a circle in his mouth. I looked at it, I said, what's that signify? He said, you should know. I said, no, tell me. He said, that's a messenger of the Creator, the raven. Because you'll find a raven all over the earth. What did they say in the white man's lie, the Bible? Book of Enlightenment, book of lies? And the white dove. The white dove appeared. It gave the right to know bullshit. It was the clan women who sent the flood. Years ago, there was Joe Rohn, late Joe Rohn, Muskegee Radio. was a medicine man. He was good. They had a lodge. And they wanted to be free in the mountains, that nobody would touch them. So they had a lodge ceremony. And one of my chums was there, brother Dennis. And after the lodge, it said in the lodge, you look for what biscuit it is. But the way they said it was Wapoo is the same thing then. So after the lodge, Joe was asking everybody, who's this white thunderbird? Who is it? Dennis said, oh, I know, that's Howse. He lived in the mountains. My corporate name, that's the Howse. So he said for me, we spent the day together, the whole day. Here's what I learned about this flood. He said, you know, I met your old uncles at the time you guys were in that boarding school. So they took me out west. We went out there. And they showed me a mountain. And they said, this is the mountain where we had to build a road up there. We had to build big boats up there. We had to save food, because they said there's a flood coming. So here it was, 10 years after that, I went to visit my granddaughters and their mom out of Vancouver Island. So I got over there and drove them to town. We had a dinner, got groceries. They're coming back. And I look up this mountain. There's a big crucifix there. So I asked my daughter, what's that all about? She said, oh, that mountain, that's where the people, when the flood came, that's where they were told to go. Go up there, build big canoes, save food, flood coming. I said, why is the cross up there? It used to be made out of wood, but the Indians burned it down. So that one up there now, it's cemented in, it's made out of steel. Anyway, so he's trying to distract people, trying to distract our people full. A lot of them knew the creation story. She learned from. So I go to the West Coast, there's a brother there. They live at sea level. So I told him about that. He said, I want to show you. Well, I almost had to lay down to look up. Wow. He said, we were told to build a road up there, save food, build big canoes, get ready for flood coming. So there it is, all over the earth. That's the power that our people had among all the clan mothers of the earth. Because it was the woman's side that would do that particular ritual. To get rid of people like this. So, I don't mean to be offend anybody who believes in that. Believe it if you will. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not asking you to believe anything. I don't like that word belief. I want you to know. To know. When you know, you can't be fooled by a judge in the court or any official in the government. Now, let's go back to this. So of these 6 treaties, how they were made, from these treaties comes the law of nations, which has clan mothers who hold territorial right or ceasing jurisdiction, which means they hold the right in the territory. Okay? Now, let's move on. How do you define a sovereign territory? How do you define it? Here's what it is. Today, I try to explain it to people best I can. Now, right now, So living on a reserve, not everyone. There are exceptions to the rule, those who become signatory Indian. The law doesn't, white man's law doesn't apply to you. But the rest, here's what it is. This treaty that you signed in the past, Indian people were honorable. They used the pipe, all of it. Their part. Not the liar, not the thief. That one word for the devil, if you will. So here's what they did. Here's what they gave you. Here's what they took. That's your territory. Indian Reserve. I found it in international law. I printed it, I passed it out everywhere. Indian reserves, reservations, according to international law, are classified as prisoner of war camps. It says right in, it says that reservations, reserves, pueblos, rancheros, like to the south, those are terms that refer to a place where prisoners of war were kept. There you are. What I do is I bring you back to what is yours, because it's in the mountains. Now, how is this determined? What you got with these treaties that the white man is using against you? These guys. Now, he did this, not you. He did this. This is treaty number 1. This is treaty number 2. This is treaty number 3, on and on. He determined that land base, not you. By international law, which comes from what? Comes from tribal law. Comes from here. How do you determine the land base, a sovereign land base? The determination is done through a linguistic concept. In other words, wherever Blackfoot is spoken is your jurisdiction. Who the hell is this? It's all of this. I find out from different people, Byron knows about this, Blackfoot used to be up in our area, or what they call Jasper. Okay? As far as Manitoba, what Mike calls Manitoba.
So, like on linguistic, on linguistic concept,
Yeah.
wherever our language is spoken,
That's your jurisdiction.
it's our jurisdiction. So if we were to take the territory back,
Yeah.
let's say Treaty 4, Treaty 6, or Treaty 8 are on the territory, they would fall under us.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we would own Blackstone and Northern Creek.
That's right. So you get a territory, and I've been telling this to some people everywhere I go. You come back to being tribal or signatory Indian. You can collect rent, but you've got to know how to address it. That's what I can do for you. Because I know the language to use and I know the law they must abide by. So you could, whoever's living in your territory, look at Cardston.
Collect all that rent.
There was 2 people, what church is that, Morton?
Yeah.
That place is like a castle. You ever seen that thing? First time I saw it, what the hell? These guys got money. But I find out from what happened in the back days. You know, some say what happened in his story. I coined that phrase. They say history, I call it his story, not ours. It is his story, he didn't lie. So Cardston was part of your territory, it still is to this day. I looked at Cardston and I thought, hell, start collecting rent, become signatory. So, somehow. So I put him under the protection of a signatory tribe that I've schooled for years. So there's two tribes in existence. You could come under that protection until you're on your own. And it works. So now, the linguistic concept. See, there's a lot of people that will try to challenge that. Of course, they're hired to do it. Chief and council. Remember, chief and council are a corporate charter. They're not legal Indians anymore. They're a corporate charter belonging to Canada. Now, Byron touched on this. Here's what it is in relation to surrendering jurisdiction. What happened in 1982? What happened? 1982, a constitution was sanctioned by the Crown of England for citizens of Canada, their corporation. How late did it came? Did it come? 1982. Up until then, what were they? Citizens, their citizenship, up until 1947, I believe, they were all considered to be British subjects. There was no Canadian. They were just make-believe. It still is today. They were British subjects. Now, when this Constitution happened, here's what happened. So it comes back over here. So the NIB, National Indian Brotherhood, which became, as he alluded to, AFN, Assembly First Nation, no, what? Common sense. Now here's what happened. I'll tell you right now who it was. George Erasmus, Northwest Territories. He was the head of NIB, the big chief, corporate chief. His advisor, a lawyer, white woman, his wife. What does she know? White man's law. So what happens? Then his cronies, they go to the government of Canada. What do they say? Mr. White Man, government, we want our rights guaranteed under your Constitution. Under. No problem, boy. That's the fastest bill ever passed in that Parliament because the Indians now surrendered. Not all of you, but they assume, everyone is, they assume the corporation that Erasmus running, NIB, was legitimate. It is not. Never was, never will be. They're nothing more than a corporate charter belonging to the bigger corporation known as, some say, KKK Canada. Not all that? No.
So there was when they brought that over, there was the British North American Act that became the Canadian Constitution.
The British North American Act has got nothing to do with anything. It's not valid.
Okay.
It's not valid. Who instituted the British North American Act? Crown of England. What did they say?
I got to head up. We'll give you a call tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank
We'll
you.
be back tomorrow. So this 1982, it shouldn't affect us, but it did. Because, why? The classification that you're living under, POW status. That's putting a nail in the coffin, what they did. So, in all of this, I'll say, everything can be rectified. We can change it. But we gotta go back. What was that the old man said earlier? We have to go back. I've been hearing that since I was a kid. You gotta go back to what we were. You know, I thought, somebody was talking about something that don't matter. I realized today we're right on target. Simple as it sounds. So that's what we gotta do. We gotta go back to what we were. You can regain power. Because it never dies. You talk about memory. We may not have memory because of what's been done to us. But we can get rid of all that they've done to us when we acknowledge that a crime on their part has been committed against us. So, for example, when I go into the courtroom or when I address the government, I point out their crime simply by being an Indian. You can point out their crime. They won't deny it, but they sure hell don't want it known to other Indians. Why not? Grouch town. So that's what you've got to do. You've got to go back to what we were. When we talk about ancient times, it still has validity today. Those 6 treaties are valid. For example, you got every country in the world sitting at the United Nations table. Okay? The rule of law that I'm going to bring you to is first law of the land. Everybody sits at the UN level. They're going by corpus juris secundum, second law of the land. I bring you up to casus obis, first law. Supersedes everyone that sits at the UN. They know that. Why do you think they took and instituted Indian Affairs International? It's called UNDRIP. UNDRIP. What do they say? As long as the rivers flow, well, pretty soon it's going to be UNDRIP. There ain't going to be a drop left. Keep taking it south. Now, okay, UNDRIP. How did that come about? There used to be a working group. It was called the Working Group on Indigenous Nations. They put on a conference in Geneva, Switzerland. I didn't go. I was invited, but I didn't go. So those who went there, they came back and they said, at the United Nations level, we were being acknowledged. A lot of them wanted to go and sit at the table with all the other nations. That was their struggle. I didn't agree with it, but I didn't say nothing. I'll see how it goes. Now, when was it this kid, Trudeau, he goes to the UN, and what does he do? He stands up in front of the United Nations. This is a few years ago, maybe some of you saw it. What does he do? He says, it's like, woe the poor Indian. Oh, they have bad health, the conditions on the reservations are this, blah, 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 bad education, blah, blah. A lot of people thinking, that right on, he's addressing things for us. Bullshit. The way I read it, he's pointing out the crimes they committed to make people, Indian people, in that condition. What happens after? Unbelief. Okay. Sounds so good. Read section 46 of UNDRIP. What does it say? It gives the power back to the nation, the white nation, to decide whether or not this particular issue or whatever can be implemented. Gave the power back to the white government. Check it out. And a lot of these empty-headed chiefs, and I say empty-headed, they don't have the education, they're just popular. Corporate chiefs, stealing your money. What are some of them saying? Oh, NRUP. Oh, that's the greatest thing that ever happened. Bullshit. It's the worst thing that ever happened to Indians. So they instituted Indian Affairs International. Yet the law that I teach and it works, Meredith used it and arrested 2 Supreme Court judges right off their bench. I talked to some of the Indians who were in that courtroom after he passed. He said, yes, we were there with Meredith. He said, we don't understand what he's saying, but as soon as 5 minutes he started, and he only had one leg, one way. He used to walk with 2 canes. I wasn't there, but I could just imagine. That judge, in 2 cases, Albany, New York. That's the real capital of New York. First case, the judge got off his bench, couldn't argue anymore, he just made for the door. Ran out of his own courtroom. Second case, the same thing. So those Indians were free. They were charged. Now, when you could arrest a judge right off his bench, he says to punch it up. There's him and I having a talk, and a couple of others with us. You could punch it up under, is it under me or Meredith?
It's under,
I think it's both of them.
it's under Lester Howse, yeah.
Yeah.
It's under yours. Yeah.
You'll find it. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
They took it down several times because it carries so much power, if you understand it. I put it on there purposely. So, in all of this, arresting a Supreme Court judge, making him run out of his own courtroom. One Indian called him disabled. He wasn't disabled, he was powerful. He was born like that for a reason. And a lot of his own people tried to kill him. Why? Because in 1924 they made a mistake. They were still somewhat sovereign. But they went and made a deal with the United States government, which put them under. They realized their mistake. See, this was it. They used to be able to collect rent in their territories, and the government would pay them. But what happened was the government was broke. So they couldn't pay up. So what they said was, well, we'll give you a voice in our government. Yeah, they give him a voice, all right. A white man. A white man. It only lasted 4 years. So they realized, well, we made a mistake. So they started doing ceremonies and all this, asking Creator Great Spirit, the ancestors, for help to correct this mistake they made. So a lot of people saw the sign. Even some white people in Minnesota, they saw the sign in the sky. So they knew there was going to be one born. Well, it ended up being him. And a lot of them were mad. What is this little cripple crawls around in the dirt? How can it be him, not my son, who's healthy and everything else? So they tried to kill him. And sick. His own people couldn't accept him. And he was the Musa. Now, it's not that I'm praising him. He wouldn't accept that. I'm telling you what happened for his time. Now, when you look at your situation here as Blackfoot people, you have the power. You have the power. You have the power to bring back the proper law to stop all this madness. Where they got you right now is that corporate government that assumes jurisdiction just like the white man gave him to do. I used to get complaints. You know about some of them. People writing in to Indian Affairs. I've got about, I don't know how many, 20 different letters. I only read about 3 of them. They're all the same. And here's what it says. The complaint to Indian Affairs to correct their mistake. He said, you now deal with your chief of police. They gave them free range and to do whatever they want, and that's exactly what they're doing. They did that purposely. And these guys in power, most of them, they're thieves. They're thieves, just like their white predecessors. So what do you got in place today? See, the colonists gave the power to the neo-colonialists. The neo-colonialist chief of council. So they don't have to do anything anymore. They got the neo-colonialists to do it. Can't say your own people, because they're no longer your people when they cheat, steal, and lie to you. They're no longer Indians legally once they become part of a corporation. Or corporate charter. That's what it is. It's all it is. It's a corporate charter belonging to the colonizer. Now, people say, well, we have treaties with Great Britain. Oh. Great Britain, what did they do? First of all, let's address the law. Here's the law. Only two sovereigns can make a treaty. And go back to it, that treaty can only be based upon peace. Nothing more. So what do? They get your own people to do you in. Violate that treaty. There's no way in hell that a treaty can cover anyone that's a member of a corporate charter. It can't cover you. I'll cut to the chase on all of it. None of those treaties are any valid. They're not valid. The only way they can be valid is when they're interpreted properly by the rule of law that supersedes the white civilized nation. It goes back to the 6th Aboriginal treaties. That is the law every nation must abide by. Canada was a founding member of the United Nations. You think they'd step up? No. So what happened back in the day to put you in this situation in relation to sovereignty? First of all, so the Crown of England is considered to be a sovereign, right? First law. Okay? So what did they do? There was no sovereign that met with the other sovereign here, because from your bloodline, you're the sovereign. Got it? Only two sovereigns can make a treaty. That's what gives it validity. So the sovereign was, on their part, was represented by businessmen. Who did they send? Name some of the commissioners of that treaty.
Foote McLeod, that Sir John A. Macdonald.
Where did they give their allegiance? Crown of England, also what's known today as Canada. They had no business whatsoever to enter into treaty with Indian people. They were not sovereigns. They were businessmen. Canada was born out of the old Hudson Bay Company. The old Hudson Bay Company, where they used to trade. They set up trading posts. Here's an example. I read one book. I think you would find it. University of Manitoba, where I went to the law department. I found this one book and I was reading it. And here's what it says. It says, when they had these posts, Hudson Bay had these posts set up, there was one group that used to come and trade with them. When they'd come in, they'd call the one chief, well, the one that they considered the chief. They decided he was the chief, not him. And the medicine man that traveled with him always carried the pipe. That was, they called him a lieutenant. So, when they'd come in, they sit down, and the French, some of the French traders also from France, they called it an amulet, a pipe. So they said we'd smoke the amulet, with these Hudson Bay factories. And then they'd start to trade. So they got smart. They told the Indians, all right, they were trading with, that was Nihil, our people, Swampy Creek, they call it today. So they lived downriver. So this Hudson Bay factor, he gets hold of people in England, they tell him, well, expand your business. Tell them you want to build a post down the river so they don't have to come up the river all the time. Easier for them to build posts. So they started building posts everywhere. Okay? Now, they had no title whatsoever. That's where you get the term assumption of jurisdiction. They assumed wherever they were became their property or territory. So that's how Canada was born. Born out of trading posts, signed up and sanctioned by England. Remember what that British North American Act said? It was right, but they did it wrong, of course, purposely. You enter the territory of an Indian people, you must treat with them, must do treaty with them. Well, that's the law. But what do they do? Here's an example. Any Indian, not the real chosen ones. So when these guys came up again to trade with the Hudson Bay factor, they wanted more. They said, we're not getting enough for our furs. We want more than what you've been given. So the factor says, oh, no, it's going to be the same. He said, no, because we acknowledge you, you're the chief. Here's what his response was. He says, no, I'm not the real chief. So all he was a guy that ran the hunt, trapping all of it. So he wasn't appointed chief. Because if he was a real one, he'd be appointed by the women of the tribe or clans. That's the validity of it. England knew that. Because England, like I said, that document I sent the Queen, I showed her who she was. Descendant of Romacos, Romans who destroyed the white tribes of Europe who we have no treaties with. They were like us. They were just like us. I know where those treaties sit today. They're sure the hell not on display. They sit in the vault in the Vatican. How did they acquire them? They killed most of the tribes that signed those treaties with us. The white tribes, and they came here and killed them. Killed the Indians here. Now, we can access those, but we must be a tribe and do it by command. If you have a look at a talk I had with Meredith, it's on the internet. He said something that hit me, and it works. He said, you don't tell a white man what he should do. You don't suggest what he should do. You command him to do it. So when I put the tribe together, put the woman's side, brought the woman's side up, I did the writing of the command. I have a copy right here. And when the women sanctioned it, we went to ceremony, went to England. We didn't wait for an answer. We moved right out of the villages, out of the town, moved right into the mountains. They were mad to try to remove us. They got the command right from the crown, came to the Governor General, went to, what's his name? He was a minister for environment, so we moved right into a national park. So they sent the federal minister, who's the Minister of the Environment, and Ralph Klein sent his minister. Ralph Klein acknowledged it right away. No problem. His minister was an Indian, Cardin. Right away, acknowledged it. So here's what happened in that meeting. The head of the detachment where we were near that town, he came up and wanted to meet with me. But it's not me, it's the people. All I do is show them what must be done. It's up to them to do it, but I can only invite. So we did it. Put together the woman's side, all of it. Sent the command. Next thing, RCP knocking on the door. Dale Clark, retired. Said, always looking for Lester. That's the guy that used to have his boys arrested. Tackled me, put the summons in my pocket, because I wouldn't take it. So he come in, it's about 45 of us, I think it was, sitting in the house. Down the hallway, in the bedrooms, in the kitchen, everywhere. So we had a small table sitting in the middle of the room when we came in. No marked car, no gun, nothing. A stand, tobacco. It gives me tobacco. I just kind of laughed and looked at him, took his tobacco. I said, sit down, Dale, what do you want to know? He said, I was sent here by my commanding officer of K Division. That's for all of Alberta. His name was Donald McDermott at that time. And he said, I was sent here to tell you people, we can't touch you. He said they were trying to remove you out of the mountains. But the federal minister said, leave them alone. Klein's minister said the same thing. Leave them alone. So these guys know the law. If they didn't know it, they'd find out in a hurry. How did they find out? Same as judges. Middle of a case, a judge will leave. He'll be gone for 45 minutes. I know what he's doing. Is this Indian telling the truth? You know what he said? They're phoning the Privy Council of Canada, who are in touch with Privy Council of Great Britain, who have international legal advisors, who know what an Indian tribe is and what an Indian tribe isn't.